So, how is a person made right with God? I mean, it's a question that has been around forever, right? It's shaped history and it's fueled some of the biggest debates in Christianity. Today, we're going to look at that exact question through the eyes of one of its most important thinkers. We're going to get into the arguments that literally changed the world. When you get right down to it, the whole thing really boils down to this one single question. Is salvation something we can actually earn with our own actions, with our own effort? This was the pivotal issue that kicked off the Protestant Reformation, and a theologian named John Calvin was absolutely determined to give a clear answer. And this really gives us two different paths to what theologians call justification, which, is just a fancy way of saying the process of being made right in God's eyes. So on one side, you have justification by works, the idea that our good deeds are what make us acceptable. And on the other, justification by faith, the belief that our faith alone is what gets the job done. This is the theological battleground we're stepping onto today, and our guide is John Calvin. Calvin's whole argument really starts by zeroing in on one single word that he believed was the root of the entire problem, and that word was merit. He was convinced that this one term was totally obscuring the true nature of God's grace and, frankly, leading people down a really dangerous path. So what are we even talking about when we say merit in this context? Well, it's this idea that our good deeds have some kind of real value, that they can actually earn us favor or a reward from God. Almost like getting paid a wage for a job well done. And right here, in Calvin's own words, you can see his main problem with it. He calls it a most prideful term because it shifts the focus away from God's generosity and puts it right onto our own achievements. For Calvin, this wasn't just some word game. It was about preventing what he called perverse haughtiness. Now, what's really fascinating is how Calvin built his case. He went back and looked at the heavy hitters, respected early theologians like Augustine, who actually used the word merit sometimes. But Calvin pointed out that even when they used the word, they never really meant that humans could earn salvation on their own. Their writings always gave all the credit to God's mercy. And boom, this quote he uses from Augustine just nails his point. The saints attribute nothing to their merits. They will attribute all to thy mercy alone, O God. So by showing this, Calvin was basically saying, look, this isn't some radical new idea I just invented. This is a return to the original core understanding of grace. Okay, so that brings up a pretty big question, right? If our relationship with God isn't based on merit, then what is it based on? Well, Calvin's answer was a complete reframing. It's a gift, not a wage we've earned. Here's the thing for Calvin, and it's super important: human imperfection. He argued that even our very best actions are, in his words, full of uncleanness and defiled by some spot. And from his point of view, how could an imperfect, kind of contaminated action ever earn a reward from a perfect God? It just couldn't happen. It's impossible. To make this idea really stick, Calvin tells this little story. Imagine a super generous landowner who lets a tenant live on his property completely for free. No strings attached. It's just a pure act of kindness, a gift. But then the tenant starts acting like he owns the place. And that, Calvin says, is exactly what we do when we claim merit for our good works. We take a gift God gave us, the ability to do good, and because of our pride, we act like we earned it ourselves. We completely forget our place as the grateful recipients. So this all leads us to the absolute centerpiece of Calvin's entire argument, the person and the work of Jesus Christ. If we can't rely on ourselves, he argued, then we have to rely completely on someone else. And here you can see the really radical shift he was proposing. See, the common teaching back then, the way Calvin saw it, was that Christ kind of just opens a door, giving you the chance to then justify yourself through your own actions. But Calvin comes along and says, nope, that's not it at all. For him, Christ doesn't just open the way, he is the way. He is your justification, full stop. And since Christ is our justification, we receive everything we need through him. It's not a transaction, it's more like a transfer. So wisdom, righteousness, purity, power over evil, even life itself, these aren't things we achieve on our own. According to Calvin, they're all gifts, given to us through our faith in Christ. And this is really the bottom line for Calvin. To suggest that our own merit can somehow be added to what Christ already did, it's not just wrong, it's basically an insult. It strips Christ of his power, and it implies that his sacrifice just wasn't enough on its own. Okay, so you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. This all leads to a very logical and really important question. If our good deeds don't save us and they can't earn us any favor, then why bother doing them at all? I mean, this is the classic comeback, right? It's the question critics of this idea always ask. If salvation is a free gift that can't be earned, does that just give us a license to live however we want? Well, Calvin's answer to that was a very, very clear no. And his answer is just, it's brilliant. It's so memorable. He says, good works are not the root of salvation. They aren't the cause or the foundation. Instead, they are the fruit of salvation, the natural, inevitable result of it. Let me put it this way. A healthy apple tree, naturally, without even trying, produces good apples. It just does. In the same way, Calvin argued that good works are the external evidence that a person's faith is real and alive. They confirm our calling, as he would say. So, to put a bow on this, good works absolutely please God. For sure. But not because they're earning us brownie points. They please him because they're a sign that we're being transformed, that his grace is actually at work in our lives. They're a response of gratitude, not a bid for payment. And that really leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? Moving from a mindset of earning to a mindset of receiving is a massive shift. So the question Calvin's whole argument leaves for us today is this. If salvation is truly understood not as a wage we earn, but as a completely free gift, how does that fundamentally change everything about the way we live?